Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for y'all. So we've got some more Swordsoul Tenyi for you today. I've been laddering with this and Baronne de Fluer a decent bit over the last couple of days, as we saw. I think in the order that these are going to come out, Baronne de Fluer games should have been the last video, but in any case, yeah, as I tend to like encroach closer and closer to like the top of a rank, like right now it's like still the first week of the season. I'm at Platinum 1 right now, so I'm like, here, I'm like, you know, I just want to use decks that I'm, one, more confident in, and two, that have like a bitter, or not bitter, a better established, I'm trying to combine those two words, I think, foothold in the meta, so I tend to use like more meta decks, I guess the quote-unquote higher rank I get. In Diamond, it doesn't really matter too much to me, you know, it's like, I may or may not hit Diamond 1, that used to really matter. I think a lot of you remember, like, you know, back when I, like, you know, Master Duel first came out, I was all about, like, hitting the highest rank as early as possible, and then when Diamond got introduced, I was like, okay, how quickly can I hit Diamond 1, but, I don't know, I've definitely chilled out on that quite a bit. Just hitting Diamond, I think, is enough at this point, especially because, you know, there's not really much more incentive to hit Diamond 1, like, you get a few extra, like, 100 gems, but, like, for the amount of time you put in, like, I'm not saying it's not a worthwhile venture, and I think it's definitely still satisfying to do it. Like, it's not like I don't care about hitting Diamond 1. I'd like to hit Diamond 1 again if I had the time, but, yeah, we'll see how it goes, basically. I'm actually gonna, I'm thinking about putting together I don't think it's even gonna be a Master Duel Academy video, just a general, like, you know, here are my suggestions to improve at, like, digital card games. You know, getting like Diamond 1 in Master Duel, whether it's getting, I can't remember the top rank in Magic Arena at the top of my head, or like Legend in Hearthstone, or like Master in Runeterra, you know, just tips, I guess, for doing all that. But anyway, that's another video for another topic. This is Swordsoul Tenyi. So this build, I think, if I'm looking, yeah, should be the same that we featured in the last deck profile. It's a really solid build. I don't know right now that there's anything else I would change about it. I've kind of been thinking about a third Vishuda, honestly, a little bit lately, which sounds a little bit weird, but this card, there's a lot of situations where it comes up, and there's a lot of situations where it can get rid of really, like, just on-the-spot problematic cards. Like, it's not hard to open a Vishuda and a bunch of other stuff, and then just start, before you even combo, just, like, special Vishuda, go into Monk, and then bounce the most problematic card on your opponent's board with Vishuda. Can be a very powerful way to lead. So there have been times where, like, especially lately, where I'm thinking, well, Vishuda is a lot better, I think, than I give it credit for. So I don't know what I would take out for it, like, maybe the Feather Duster. It's funny, I included this deck specifically to, like, help me against back row based decks, because Swordsoul Tenyi does kind of tend to struggle against, like, back row based stun decks, but I cannot draw this card in this deck to save the life of me. Oh, watch, there's now going to be a game coming up here where I top deck this card and saves me, I don't remember at all. But for the most part, I can't draw this card for the life of me. And I've seen some people say, like, is it really worth it to include the 1-up Feather Duster in your deck just to potentially draw it sometimes against those matchups? And I think that's a very valid statement to make, and I do think it is worth it for a couple of reasons. The main reason is that against Floodgate-based decks like Eldritch or like just general stun decks, matchups where you really want Feather Duster, those are matchups where you tend not to get OTK'd. You know, those are matchups that tend to go on for a little bit longer. You know, just due to the nature of the type of deck that you're playing against. And I think there are a lot of situations where, like, if you can hold out for a few turns to give yourself time to top deck the Feather Duster, even if you don't draw the Feather Duster until, like, you know, 5, maybe even 6 turns into the duel, there's enough situations where you can, like, blow out your opponent's board and then make plays with what you have left in hand. Like, that you can easily, not easily, but sometimes you can easily come back like that. So I think just in general, between that and then also too, you know, I do want to give myself the option to just top deck it going second against Eldritch, like, or just open with it going second against Eldritch. Does that happen often? No, not at all. But I think it's better to give yourself the option to just not have it, like, whatsoever. So that's why I like to include Feather Duster, not just in this deck, but in a lot of my decks here in Master Duel. Like, yeah, it's only a 1 card, like, out, and also it's not the only out we have to Eldritch, right? It's not intended to be the only out to back row based stun decks or like Eldritch, but it's intended to be like another tool that we have in addition to like the Vishudas, like I was just talking about, you know, or like our Blackout or like other stuff, you know. These are all together supposed to help us against back rows and Eldritch and all that, floodgates and all those fun things. So that's why I like to include the Feather Duster, the 1-up Feather Duster in the deck. If I was like really scared of backer, like yeah, I might try to find room for a Lightning Storm, but this isn't the kind of deck where I think we have room for that, nor do I think it's necessary in this particular format. But so yeah, the main deck is the same. Extra deck, I haven't really felt the need to do anything different with, honestly. I know I said like way back when, you know, Longyuan, way back, it wasn't that long ago, but like when Longyuan first went to 2, or not even, no, this wasn't when Longyuan went to 2. This is way back when Hulk got banned, which is, again, like a little over 2 months ago. I think. Time is weird and fake. But in any case, I've been liking 3 Monk. There have been quite a few matchups where 3 Monk has really come up, so I really like having the 3. It looks a bit excessive, but like, again, you gotta be thinking about not just like opening the best hand to go off on turn 1. You gotta be thinking about the long game when you're building your deck as well. Like, you want to be able to have your deck set up that it can play the long game, and that doesn't just like vomit out all its resources right away. There are some decks that will end up doing that just due to the nature of how they play. But this doesn't necessarily have to be one of those decks, and this is definitely a deck where you can prepare for the long game, and it's not uncommon to go in the long game. It's not frequent, but it's not uncommon, so. Alright, yeah, I don't have much else to say about the build overall, so let's break it down card by card, and then look at some games. We're playing 1 Effect Veiler, 2 Tenyi Spirirt Adhara, 3 Maxx, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Tenyi Spirirt Shthana, 3 Swordsoul of Mo Ye, 2 Swordsoul of Taia, 2 Incredible Ecclesia, the Virtuous, 2 Swordsoul Strategist Longyuan, 2 Tenyi Spirirt Vishuda, 3 Tenyi Spirirt Ashuna, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Archnemesis Protos, 1 Harpie Featherduster, 3 Swordsoul Emergence, 1 Swordsoul Sacred Summit, been liking this card a lot by the way, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Exterminator, 2 Heavenly Dragon Circle, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and then 1 Swordsoul Blackout. Extra deck is going to have 1 Yazi, Evil of the Zing, 2 Baxia, Brightness of the Zing, 1 Draco, Berserker of the Tenyi, 1 Adamancipator Risen Dragite, 2 Swordsoul Grandmaster Chi Xiao, 1 Chao Fang, Phantom of the Zing, 1 Baronne de Fluer, 1 Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Cheng Ying, 1 Swordsoul Sinister Sovereign Qi Xing Longyuan, 3 Monk of the Tenyi, and then finally 1 Shaman of the Tenyi. So there is the build. Let's go and take a look at some games. Alright, so this first duel is going to be against Fluwanderees. We actually ended up playing against quite a few like disruption-based decks in these games, so it'll be nice to see how we're able to like play against those. It looks like we're taking the first turn against Flows here, so look at my hand here, we got a lot of options here. Even if we didn't have the Swordsoul Emergence, even just opening Ashuna plus Vishuda is actually enough to, like, you know, combo off. It might not seem like it, apparently, but what you can do is you can special Ashuna, send that for Monk, then special the Vishuda, banish the Ashuna for Adhara, and then sync for a Chi Xiao for 8, and then you can get searches from there. You are locked into Worms because of Ashuna, but that is a way that you can make plays with just these 2 cards here. But like I said, we did actually open Emergence, so we can go ahead and lead with that here. Well, I'll actually lead with the Ashuna here to see if my opponent's got a Maxx. I usually like to do that if I've got an extra Tenyi monster in hand, like especially Ashuna in particular. If you just start by specialing it, your opponent will often just, like, obviously, they'll toss out the Maxx. So in a situation where we can handle it easily, I like to do that, just kind of like, I guess, get it out of the way. So we'll go ahead and just Ash Blossom the C. And also this way I know that if they have like a counter, like if they have like a Gamma against the Ash Blossom, then I know I can just hold my Emergence for the next turn. I don't have to use it right now. So it looks like actually before Emergencing, I'm just going to go ahead. Oh, that's right. I want to start setting up that line here before I go for the Emergence, right? So I'll set up the Monk, you know, sending the Ashuna for the Monk and then especially the Vishuda, and then I'll activate Emergence for Taia. And the reason I'm doing it in this order is because if I activate Emergence and then just summon the Mo Ye / Taia, then I won't be able to special summon the Vishuda later. But the way I've got things set up right now, I could potentially go for an extra level 8 Synchro, or like maybe a Chao Fang in addition to my regular inboard there, is what I would do if I didn't get Nibiru here. So this hand did play a lot into Nibiru. That is the risk that you take, but it's one I was willing to make there. So here I'm going to keep going though. I'm going to banish the Ashuna for an Adhara. I can do that because I've got a non-effect monster, the Primal Being token on the board. Then I can use Adhara to wheel the Ashuna back to my hand for potential plays next turn. I'm also going to use the Vishuda to bounce this Nibiru, because ideally I would like to keep this Monk of the Tenyi around here, right? That and also the Primal Being token I think is going to be more difficult for my opponent to handle if they don't have a Nibiru on the board. Now, I know in hindsight that I'm playing against Fluwanderees, and they're not going to be using that Nibiru as, like, you know, a link material or something. That's the main reason why I bounced it back. Well, one of the main reasons, again, so one, that it couldn't be used like a link material for something, and then 2, so that I can protect my Monk of the Tenyi here. Now, it's still fairly likely my Monk is going to get destroyed, but All the same, yeah, I feel like just making sure they don't have an extra free 3k beater on the board is fine. Now, I do have to be mindful that my opponent has an Nibiru for my plays next turn, but now that I know that it's in hand, I can play around it fairly easily. Plus, given that I've got this big Primal Being token, I ideally won't need too much more help ending the game off here. My opponent begins their turn by activating a Pot of Duality. I'm just going to throw out an Ash Blossom. I've kind of hit this point lately where I just Ash Blossom Duality rather than waiting for like a Rabina, because like the Advent of Adventure, between the Advent Adventure and the Called By and the Crossout, they're so likely to have a response to the Ash Blossom. Not so likely, but they're decently likely to have a response to the Ash Blossom on the Rabina. So like if I can just stop them from filtering, then I'm fine with that. Plus, I talked about this a little bit in another recent video where like you can like knowing your opponent's knowing what your opponent has access to is very important, right, in terms of making decisions like this, because normally if my opponent like turn 1 blinded with Duality and then had 4 unknowns in hand, I might be a little bit less inclined to Ash it right away, but now I know it's turn 2, my opponent is down on resources because they used this Maxx earlier, and then I know one of the cards in hand is Nibiru, so now that I know that they're trying to filter with Duality, they've only got 3 other unknown cards left here. And it's not super likely for them to be like exactly what they need in order to go off here. So that's another reason why I feel confident hitting the Duality with the Ash Blossom here. So this will resolve, and if I recall correctly, oh no, they activate the Advent of Adventure, the map there, not the Advent of Adventure, the Magnificent map. So yeah, opponent is going to end up getting some plays off here. They'll Rabina for the Eaglin, and they can just kind of like do stuff at this point. So I actually remember exactly how this game panned out, now that I think about it. Yeah, so they'll get the Eaglin, they'll get the Wind Barrier statue. They do have, I believe, still their additional normal, or their regular normal summon, that's right. So they'll be able to, you know, do the barrier statue on top of the impen. That said, I've still got the Primal Being token, so I'm not like super duper concerned here. I can just run over this impen very easily, and the thing is though, I gotta be mindful of like my opponent getting like a Ryza or something, is what I would normally think, you know, but then the Eaglin stayed banished, so I'm like, okay, well no, they could still summon it during their turn with the Dreamtown, right? Yeah, but they actually didn't search the Dreamtown, they added the, you know, unexplored winds, so I'm like, oh crap, are they gonna tribute my Primal Being token here? And they don't. They tribute my Monk and the Impen for the Nibiru, question mark? So that was definitely a very questionable play on the opponent's part. If they tributed the Primal Being token, like, I just would have been screwed. Like, no joke, I would have had to have top deck Imperm, and even then, let's see, I would have top deck Imperm, special to Ashuna, send Ashuna for Monk. This is why third Monk comes up, by the way, right? Because we would have definitely needed the third Monk here. Banish Ashuna for, like, Adhara, question mark? And then we can send Adhara and Monk for Shaman. Oh, but then we can't wheel with Adhara. See, like, I don't even know what I would really do. If even, again, this is also assuming I top deck exactly Imperm to negate the barrier statue here. But, yeah, no, my opponent attributed the Monk of the Tenyi instead, question mark? And, yeah, we'll take that. We're fine with that. So I drew a Swordsoul Emergence, and my opponent, I guess, conceded, realizing their mistake. Yeah, so my plan, obviously, was to just then turn the Primal Being to attack mode, battle over the barrier statue, and then then Emergence, and then I have, like, any amount of plays I can do there. Like, at that point, I think I could pretty easily Chi-Shao plus Baron off that one Emergence plus the Ashuna in hand. I know I could, actually, so yeah, we just have a really easy setup for the rest of the game there. Again, I don't know if my opponent, like, misclicked, or if, I don't know how you can misclick. Maybe they're playing on mobile and they mistapped or something. Like, I don't know. In any case, though, like, yeah, like, we definitely take wins like that, especially against, like, Flaunderies. Like, yeah, it was due to the opponent's misplay, but you know what? I'll definitely still take it, so. Alright, there's that game. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Alright, this duel is going to be against Live Twin, another very disruption kind of base deck, or I guess it has a lot of, like, hand traps and stuff, so. Another deck we're going to have to play through quite a bit of that stuff here. We are going to go first again, so that's good. We opened Ecclesia here, so we're going to have to use that to go into Mo Ye to go off. I don't like doing this if I don't have to, because on turn 1 in particular, using the normal summon for Ecclesia and then specialing like the Mo Ye from deck, because it leaves you susceptible to Ash Blossom in a place where you're normally not on this combo. So, again, if you have the ability to like avoid having to go into Ecclesia, or having to use Ecclesia on turn 1, I would prefer to do that. Opponent doesn't have an Ash for the Ecclesia, but they do have an Imperm. Either way, I've got a Crossout Designator here, which obviously is very, very nice against particularly the Imperm here, so... You know, I will say, I very much don't miss Crossout Designator at 3, though. Like, as nice as it was to have all that insurance, it was very annoying to play against. Of course, is the eternal caveat of cards like that, so... overall, though, I am glad that Crossout Designator went to 1 copy, so... Yep, I'll do the pretty standard Swordsoul plus Mo Ye here. Basically, if I don't draw a Longyuan or a Emergence, I'll just search Longyuan here with Swordsoul, so that I can go into Baronne. Yeah, it's not, you know, the most impressive end board. Like, there's a lot of better stuff you can do than Swordsoul plus Baronne, but with this hand in particular, it's the best we could do, and it's still totally fine, I think. As long as you don't get Kaiju'd. As long as you don't get Kaiju'd. Or, like, Lava Golemed. Now, it's happened to me enough lately that I get really paranoid when I end on just Swordsoul plus Baronne. I'm like, oh boy, here comes the, what do you call it? The Lava Golem. So, in any case, my opponent is going to start by activating Secret Password. Now, obviously, at this point, priority gets, even though it doesn't show in the replay, priority gets passed back to me to ask if I want to respond. Of course, I can either Baronne or Ash it. Now, I'm actually not going to Ash the Secret Password at all. And that might look a little bit weird, because it's like, oh, Secret Password is like their search card, right? Well, Life Twin does like a lot of searching. They have a Secret Password, they have Sunny Snitch, and then, of course, the Life Twin monsters themselves will search out and special the other Life Twin from the deck. So, if you're playing against Life Twin, don't Ash the Secret Password, because they'll just search on their search with that. And honestly, don't search the Sunny Snitch either. You want to Ash the Life Twin monster itself. Because if you Ash the Secret Password or the Sunny Snitch, then it's really easy for them to, like, you know, like their opponent had a Droplet here. Well, I guess that wouldn't have stopped the Ash Blossom in particular, but, you know, it's really easy for your opponent to have just another search, or, like, the Live Twin monster anyway. It's like way back in earlier seasons when I was talking about don't Ash Tenki, Ash Fractal. It's the same principle here. Don't Ash the search that's going to search the search, Ash the final search, so to speak. So, wait for your opponent to commit the normal summon for the Life Twin here, and then Ash Blossom that is what I recommend. So, I would let the Secret Password resolve. Opponent's going to respond with a Forbidden Droplet, sending the password that is resolving, as well as a Kill Frost in hand. I'm really glad to actually see this pitch, and this is actually one of the reasons why I say that you should wait to see what they search, because you know, there are a lot of times where you'll already have like the Live Twin Leela in hand, and then you'll just end up using the Sunny Stitch to get the extra Kill Frost. But if my opponent's sending this here, this card is only sometimes played at 2. I typically play 1. I think most people tend to play 1, so we can decently reason that our opponent's probably not going to have access to it. I'm also totally fine with them negating Swordsoul and Baronne here, because this means they've only got 2 other cards left now. Again, talking about opponent's resources and managing that, and figuring out how you're going to, you know, use your responses in response to whatever few resources they have left. So here I know if my opponent has like exactly Live Twin plus a Call By, for example, as their last 2 cards, they'll normally send the Live Twin. I'll just pop off the Ash Blossom response first before the Effect Veiler. That way, if they have a Call By, they can Call By the Ash, and I can still hit them with Veiler. If I did it the other way around, if I Veilered first and they Call By, I would have an opportunity to Ash, because Ash has to be chained directly to the effect that is, you know, searching, specialing, whatever, doing stuff with the deck. So. Yep, so they will add the Sunny Snitch. I guess they have 2 unknowns, I should have clarified. They have a total of 3 available resources. So Sunny Snitch is going to grab the Leela, summoning the Leela. Like I mentioned, I'm going to pop off the Ash Blossom now. My opponent does actually, if I remember it correctly, have the Call By, yeah, in response here. So this feels really, really good. Now, even though they Call By the Ash Blossom, I can just pop off Veiler in response and stop them from doing any amount of their plays. Now they only have 1 card left in hand. They're not able to get over my board. I can just follow up with, you know, plays on my next turn, and they just concede as a result. So that is a very smooth game against Live Twin. I wanted to show that game off in particular to show how, like, even if you, because there've been a lot of games with Swordsoul Tenyi like this lately, where usually it's our Swordsoul plus Baronne getting Lava Golemed, but in this case they both got Dropleted. One, it does demonstrate how, as I mentioned when I showed off Live Twin and other decks that play it, how good Droplet is this format. 2, you know, in this particular situation, we had enough resources in hand that the Droplet didn't matter, but it did matter the timing in which we use these resources, so that was a very good game, just kind of like demonstrating that. So, yeah, we got that one in. Let's go and take a look at the next game. Alright, so this next duel here is going to be against a Crusadia deck. This deck can be a little bit scary because it can OTK fairly consistently, but this is another situation in which, like, you know, even slightly knowing the opponent's deck can be very, very helpful here. So my hand is looking pretty solid here. I'm going to start with the Ashuna, specialing that, and then sending that, or no, not sending that for the monk just yet, but we'll start by normal sending the Mo Ye, revealing the Taia, getting the token. From here I'll go into Chi Xiao. I don't actually honestly have too much of a plan with this Ashuna. Like I said, I like to reveal it early to try to bait out a Maxx because I'd rather end with just an Ashuna in defense mode on board response to Maxx than like my Mo Ye and Swordsoul token on board, you know, so. Get the draw plus the search here. I'll send the other Ashuna for the Strategist Longyuan here. And then now with the token out, my plan is to go ahead and, well, yeah, my plan was here to special in Adhara, right? And then from there I can sync these two for the, I was going to go for the Qi Xing Longyuan, the level 10 synchro, and then I can use the 2 level 8s to, I was debating if I wanted to, there were 2 other options, or there were actually 3 options to go into with that level 8 there, that I was really debating. One was the Dragite that would not have gotten me a draw with Qi Xing Longyuan, so I wasn't really thinking about going into this one too much, but it was an option. I was mainly thinking about, well, actually, it wouldn't be an option because I would have gotten the Ashuna effect to only summon Worms for the rest of the turn, so I would have either had to go for a Draco Berserker or one of my Baxias here. The Draco Berserker is the safe thing to go into. I get my draw, I have another piece of disruption in the form of a banish, and then I pass. But if I wanted to here, I could have tried to go for Baxia, try to draw like a spell or a trap that I could just set, and then use Baxia's effect, destroy that, bring back Adhara, and go into Chao Feng. I'm not gonna lie, I actually really considered doing that more than I think I normally would have because my opponent specifically had these like light sleeves. And that's a little bit of like maybe psychological, subjective like head gaming there, but I figure if my opponent's got light sleeves, it's a decent enough chance of running a light based deck that I can maybe try to run out of Chao Feng here on turn 1 and stop them from doing anything. But it doesn't matter because my opponent has Ash Blossom for the Ashuna effect anyway, so it's like, okay, whatever, fine, we'll just go into a Baron like we would normally anyway, so. But that is why I specifically use that Ashuna there. I guess I didn't have to discard it. I could have discarded Adhara. Actually, it would have been better because then I could have just sent the Ashuna while the Swordsoul token from Longyuan was up, send the Ashuna for a monk, and then just go from there. Oh, and then I could have even gone into Baron. Hang on a second, then I could have even gone into Baron. I would have had a normal monster on board, so I could still have used Ashuna's effect anyway. Wow, I definitely should have done that. I actually misplayed that. But I don't know, the opponent had the Ash anyway, so it didn't ultimately end up mattering, but I did slightly misplay that. I will point that out there. So, yeah, here our opponent's got a Kaiju. We love to see that. At least it's not Lava Golem, so we can just go ahead and plan on not having a pair in this turn. I am going to Maxx in response to the Kaiju coming out. Not just in general, but especially in response to like which Kaiju it is. It's funny. If the more quote-unquote splash kaijus tend to be the moth and the turtle, so if Gameciel or the moth come down, I don't always Maxx in response to that, but if I see another kaiju, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, this is an obscure enough kaiju that my opponent is probably just going to, rather there's a decent enough chance my opponent's going to just like special kaiju then from their hand, so that's why I'm Maxx in response to the, Humongous getting, that's not really what this card's called, in response to that getting played on my board here. So opponent's going to follow up with a Desires here and then go into their Crusadia Arborea. At this point, I'm like, okay, it's Crusadia, they're going for an OTK, that's why they Kaiju'd me. Yeah, so the Kaiju, like I was about to say there, before I tripped over my own words, the Kaiju is an important part to the Crusadia strategy, right, because it gives them a strong attack mode monster. More importantly, that is in a zone that their Link monster is going to point to in order to like go for their OTK. So at this point, I'm planning on using my Chi Xiao in order to negate the spell Trap Search. I know that's going to be particularly important for Crusadias. I've played against them enough to know that like the spell Trap Search is important for either extending and or I think that you have a spell card that can make their monster unaffected by card effects for the whole turn, so that's typically something you don't want them to have either way. So it is the Crusadia Regulux, the Link 2, that searches a spell or trap. That's what I'm looking to hit with my Chi Xiao here, but my opponent's got a Parallel Exceed thrown into the combo, which will let them go for Silent Honor Arc, which I haven't seen this card in a long time. I played against this card when it first came out in the TCG, I remember how annoying it was. But they're going to use this to bait out my Shao negate, so that's pretty unfortunate. Now I'm going to have to rely on top decking some form of disruption here, but it's not terribly unlikely that my opponent's going to have a form of disruption, or that I'm going to have a form of disruption for my opponent, rather. Given how many summons I know they're going to do, and the fact they're under Maxx C here. Oh yeah, I banished the Blackout for the token just kind of to have it. I don't know. I didn't have a super solid plan with it, but fortunately I did manage to rip an Ash Blossom right at the very end here. Not right at the very end, I guess I had one more draw afterward, but I managed to rip an Ash Blossom to stop this Regulux search, so I'm very, 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 very grateful for that. My opponent is going to go into the Link 3, what is it, the Equimax? Yeah, the Equimax. So that's definitely scary, and they have the damage doubler here, but even 6,000 attack with damage doubled is not by itself enough to go for lethal. That is close but no cigar, so thank God. Whew, managed to survive the turn against Crusaders. I wasn't 100% confident I was going to do that here in this situation, but we actually managed to, yeah, not die. So, they are going to go into the Mech Knight Crusadia Avramax here, which this card can be pretty scary, Link 4 to answer. There are some decks that really have a hard time answering this card because this card can't be targeted by card effects. You know, it pretty much can't be destroyed by battle. It's always going to gain attack equal to whatever tries to battle over it. And even if you do manage to send it to the graveyard without targeting it, you're going to lose a card on your field. So you have to be mindful of all these things when dealing with Avramax. So I'm looking for non-targeted, non-destruction removal, which might seem like pretty narrow, you know, field of requirements, but I am playing Swordsoul, so I have access to Cheng Yang, so it's actually not going to be that bad at all. Especially given my hand here, I'll go ahead and throw out an Emergence. My opponent does actually have an Ash Blossom for it, so I'm not going to be able to get Longyuan that way, but I do fortunately have one in my graveyard, and I have a Summit here, so there was actually almost a window where I wasn't able to really effectively deal with this Avramax. I could have just destroyed it, I guess, and then just let one of my cards get shuffled back. I think in this situation that would have been totally fine, but in any case here, like I said, if we can go for non-targeting, non-destruction removal, let's do it. So I'll just special the Protos to banish cards and banish my opponent's Avramax that way. Throw out stuff on board just to have it, I guess, I don't know, why not, before swinging in for lethal. So, GG's against Crusaders there. Again, that game is a good demonstration of showing that, like, it is important to at least have a somewhat vague idea of what most decks you can reasonably run into are trying to do. And even if you had never played against Crusadia or just totally unfamiliar with them, one thing that I like to do is just pull up, like, the Master Duel meta page for whatever deck you're playing against, like, even mid-game, like, as they're comboing and being like, okay, like, what are they going to go in for? Like, for example, the first time, you know, one of the first times I played against this combo, my opponent Regulux, I pulled up Master Duel meta and I looked up, okay, Crusadia decks, what spell and traps are they searching? That's where I saw they were searching, probably going to anyway, search a spell that made their stuff unaffected, and I was like, yeah, no, we can't have that. So then I just knew to negate that search from then on out. So just doing a little bit of research, even mid-game, can be very, very helpful if possible to know what you're dealing with. So, alright, let's go take a look at the next duel here. Okay, last duel of the video is going to be a pretty nice back and forth against Baronne de Fluer. This build in particular has got some pretty interesting text going on. They've got like a Kaiju, they've got a couple of Blue Eyes cards, like the White Stone and the Jet, so just like a small engine. It seems mostly to be a Baronne de Fluer deck, but yeah, interesting build there. So I'm going to start off with the Ashuna here. Opponent's got a Maxx C, so I'm just going to special in defense mode and then just pass at that point. Yeah, I didn't want to lead with the Longyuan, not because of Maxx C, obviously I didn't know my opponent, you know, I didn't know they had Maxx C, but I could have, I guess, potentially led with the Longyuan and maybe discarded Vishuda, summoned it in the token, and then activated Ashuna, but then, like, no. I would have just rather gone into a more traditional, like, you know, special Ashuna, send for Monk, special Vishuda, start from there, that kind of a play. So, opponent's going to start doing Baronne de Fluer stuff. I do have a Maxx C for, like, some amount of draws, my opponent's got a call by for it. So that's definitely a little more than a little bit annoying. And then also this Nibiru, I'm like, okay, this Nibiru is very likely not going to do anything. Although, I will note that on turn 2, it's much more likely to do stuff than turn 1. Because on turn 2, it's more likely for your opponent to go for additional summons to try to, like, win the game right then and there. And I'm trying to see, what they discarded for Rebellion? Was it another Tragedy? Yeah, it was another Tragedy, okay. So, yeah. They're switching up the dramaturge here in particular, which makes me think, like, okay, I might actually be able to pull off this Nibiru here. I know I can actually as soon as they go for the Albion here. I realized, like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to do enough summons for me to Nibiru them. So that is a welcome bit of reprieve, I guess, so to speak. So yeah, they'll go for the Masquerade using the Dramaturge in hand. They'll let them summon the Dramaturge, and then as they go to end their main phase here is when I'll drop the Nibiru on them. I do have to be mindful of this token. Got to make sure we answer that. I've got a Vishuda that I currently plan on using to do that, though I do also have to be mindful of our opponents branded in red. Since Albion did go to the graveyard this turn, they are able to search that up. Here's Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, although I don't think that's really going to end up doing too much for us at this stage. My opponent's playing Skill Drain. That's right, this was another tech card they were playing. It was just like really annoying because it's like, wow, that's like actually the perfect card you could have with this giant Nibiru token I gave you. Definitely was not anticipating the skill drain from this from this Baronne de Fluer opponent here. So it's like, okay, we still have options though. We have this Vishuda. We can use that to get rid of the token there. Opponent's going to chain with a Brandon in red so that way they can just fuse with the token. Obviously, wanting to make use of it before it gets removed. I did figure that was probably going to happen, but at least with a skill drain on the board, they're not going to get draws or destruction with their Guardian Chimera. So I guess their skill drain is kind of like a double-edged sword for them in this regard, but you know, all the same, they're still able to fuse with it. I'm still actually not able to get over this Guardian Chimera right now, so there is that to contend with as well. Because skill drains on the board is going to get a buff or debuff the opponent's board. So I'm going to have to wait and try to use this Vishuda on their next turn to bounce the Guardian Chimera off the board. I decided to synchro anyway into a Qixing Longyuan to get the burn in to potentially win next turn if the opportunity presented itself. And also, I wanted to keep this Vishuda on board, right? So I wanted to keep this on board so that way next turn I could send it for the Monk and then I'd have a non-effect monster on board to bounce the Guardian Chimera. If Vishuda just gets destroyed by battle, then I don't have a non-effect monster. I don't really have a way to get a non-effect monster right now. So that's actually the main reason why I made this Qixing Longyuan. I kind of made this as a way to be like, for my opponent to just kind of be like, hey, attack this, look at this big scary level 10 synchro I made. Wouldn't you much rather battle this than just some lonely Vishuda on the board? So this was definitely an attempt to draw my opponent away from battling with my Vishuda, which they did in fact do. So I was definitely not unhappy to see that here. So I can get this Guardian Chimera off the board and maybe make this board a little bit more answerable. Now that I have this Taia though, I'm kind of eyeing the skill drain with my Vishuda instead. It's going to be a little bit more risky because my opponent does still have a back row, but I'm going to go for it here. I'm going to roll some of the Taia, and then my opponent chains a Droplet. It's like, it's so annoying. Not only is it annoying, but I'm also kind of like grumbling because, like, you know, I'm of the opinion that, like, Droplet plus skill drain is a bit much, but it's like, okay, you know, I guess if it works out for my opponent, then it works out for them. Fortunately, I did not yet actually activate the Taia effect when they played Droplet, so I can actually still go for a Shaman and then bring the Taia back here in order to then go for a Draco Berserker. I would have really liked to go for Baxia here. I really wanted to go for Baxia, but due to the effect of Shaman of the Tenyi, I wouldn't have gotten the effect to spin both of these back. So I can still go for a Draco Berserker, battle over the Masquerade, and then battle over the Guardian Chimera there. I would have liked to have done that, but I unfortunately forgot about Alibur's effect, which negates my Draco Berserker's effect, and then neither of these are actually strong enough to battle over the Alibur. So, yeah, I totally misplayed that. I always forget about Alibur's graveyard base effect, so we're going to lose my Draco Berserker to this Guardian Chimera. We know they set the skill drain down, so we're really not looking like we're in a great spot here. My opponent does actually link them away for the Vert to go into, I think, the Mirror Jade here, probably, if I had to imagine. Oh, no, that's right. They changed this to Dark and then sent a Super Poly to go for the Star Venom. Seems a little bit, I don't know. Seems a little bit win more to me, but it's easy for me to say that, I guess, being in the losing position. But I don't know. It did seem like a little bit, like maybe, I don't want to say a waste of resources, but maybe more a bit of an unnecessary or egregious use of resources here. In any case, I'm in top deck mode against these Star Venom, and I know to be a skill drain face down. I've at least got a lot of life points, so I don't have to, like, you know, lose right away. I have a couple of draws here, not just the one. Excuse me. Yeah, this Albaz is going to come down, do a little bit more damage to us before we go into our next turn. Opponent's got another face down card, which is definitely very intimidating. I did manage to draw a Mo Ye here, so any worm monster would have done it here. So yeah, I'll summon the Mo Ye, get the Adhara with the Heavenly Dragon Circle, then I can special the Adhara, send that away for a Monk. Now I have a non-effect monster on board, so now I have access to my Tenyi graveyard effects, which I've got Adhara and Ashuna, and through Adhara I have Vishuda as well. So here I'll go ahead and special the Vishuda, then use the Ashuna effect to special on Adhara. I want to go for my level 8 Synchro first and bait out the skill drain, so that way I know which one I want to, return to the hand with the, what do you call it? The, Vishuda there it is. So, yeah, I'll target the back rows again. I knew the skill drain was going to get flipped up, but again, I also know that in the right situation here, I have an out for lethal. So, yeah, I'll bounce the skill drain. I maybe should just bounce the Star Venom here now that I think about it. Yeah, that was definitely greedy. One of the reasons I wanted to show this game is because I wanted to, see maybe if you guys could help me figure out, or if I could figure out where I messed up here. And I think that is actually exactly where I messed up here, is by bouncing the skill drain and not the Star Venom. Obviously, in hindsight, I can know that because I know they have Imperm. Because my plan was to destroy this and then bring back Taia and then go for another level 8 Synchro. But if I had bounced the Star Venom, then I could have just battled over the Albaz. My opponent would have just had skill drain plus what I now know to be Imperm, and they would have been in top deck mode. Ah, that's where I knew there was an opportunity for me to win here. And I knew it probably mattered what I bounced with one of my Vishudas there. So, yeah, that actually did end up being what it was there, wasn't it? Ah, shoot, yeah. Yeah, in the moment I was just so fixated on getting the skill drain off the board that I totally didn't even think about... Well, I also didn't think about the Star Venom, stealing Baxia's effect. I always forget it can do that, but... then, yeah, Albaz, it can bring back Albaz and just fuse... Would actually blow up my board here, but either way, it doesn't really matter. Actually, this was a slight misplay on the opponent's part, I guess, because they could have... I guess they knew they had an Aliber, so it didn't really matter here, but... yeah, as the board state was, they would have been 100 off, but again, they knew they had Aliber, so actually it wasn't a misplay at all. I was the one who misplayed by not bouncing the Star Venom there. Now, to be fair... Well, actually, hang on. My opponent would have had... They would have had Skill Drain, Imperm. They would have top decked Aliber. Aliber wouldn't have been able to do anything because of Skill Drain. They probably would have just set it. Maybe somebody battled over the Monk. And then it would have depended on my top deck from there. So, yeah, I definitely did misplay there. I was hoping to be able to catch my own misplay, but if not, I would have, definitely been able to count on you all to do that as well. But I probably misplayed at some other point. In any case, opponent is going to take it at this point. I do feel like this game was probably winnable. So if you have any suggestions for feedback, particularly about this game and others as well, definitely leave it in the comments there. But that's going to be all for this one. Let's move now to the outro. Alright everybody, thank you very much for watching all the way to the very end like this. I greatly appreciate that. I also appreciate those of you who are commenting and or subscribing. Comments, like I said at the end of that last duel there, definitely let me know if you've got any suggestions or feedback as far as gameplay or the deck build goes, either way. Or honestly for the channel, just anything in general. I very much value and appreciate the feedback that I get in the comment section here, so definitely let me know what you think there. And yeah, subscribing, that is the best way to stay notified of when my videos drop, which does happen every single day, so know that you are getting a daily Master Duel video when you subscribe. But yeah, I think that's going to go ahead and do it for this one. So without further ado, this is Sexlex signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.